So I haven't made any longer videos lately, and so I thought I would tell you about the one of the most embarrassing times that I had in high school. And I had a few, two, three that were just like, but I think this is the one that got to me. And while I was thinking about that, I said, well, there's one about Stan I can tell too, but I will do that on another video. I assume it embarrassed him. He never told me personally that it in fact did, but if you hear the story, you got to think it probably did. But I'm going to do mine first. This is one of my most embarrassing moments in high school. It's the ninth grade freshman year. You know, you're a freshman, you're already trying to fit in. You got these people who are seniors, especially some of the football players who are 6'2", 280 pounds of muscle, and you're just coming from middle school. So, at any rate, we had, as you do at every high school, you have a certain table that you're going to sit at. It just kind of works out that way. You sit with your friends, your friend group, at a certain table. Every once in a while, some other people may come in. And for us, what happened was we had our core group of like 3 or 4, maybe 5, and we'd sit there at the table. And then there's these 2 others who started sitting there to hang on, and one of them will be in the story. But anyway, so we're sitting at our table, ninth grade. Everyone's got their tray. They're sitting there. And this guy across the table, who is not really in our friend group, but he says, and I don't know how this came up. I really don't. Looking back, I don't know how this came up, but it did. He says, I dare you to slap yourself. And I went like this. And he's like, no, I dare you to slap yourself in the face as hard as you can. And for whatever reason, me, being an idiot, said, all right. And so you know how lunchrooms are like, you just hear this buzz, it's never quiet, ever. I reared back, and I went, wham! And I knocked the heck out of myself as hard as I could. And it reverberated throughout the room. It reverberated. It's like, wham! You can hear it echoing across the walls. That chatter, that low buzz that you hear, in a high school cafeteria where everyone's eating, quiet. Silence. When you hear that smack, it's like smack! And it went everywhere. Immediately, silence. Everyone turned around and looked. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do? And then after about 10 seconds, everyone goes back to eating. I'm like, okay, maybe it'll be all right. I'll probably be okay. And then everybody at my table is rolling around laughing their butt off. One guy who was a hanger-on there, he fell out the chair. He fell out the chair laughing. And so this caused the assistant principal, who was the disciplinarian, to notice, and he didn't come over right away. About 3 or 4 minutes later, comes over to our table, and he looks at me, and he says, name, did somebody slap you? And I said, no, sir. And he said, what was that noise? I heard something. You sure nobody slapped you? Because I guess he's getting ready to take somebody up to the office to get punished or something. So, are you sure nobody slapped you? And I said, no, sir, nobody slapped me. And he said, what was that noise that I heard? Everybody heard it. What was that noise then? If nobody slapped you, what happened? And I said, he said, what? He said, I slapped my... He said, what? I said, I slapped myself. And he just looks at me about 10 seconds. Looks around the table. He says, is that true? And I was saying, yes, sir. And while I was saying, yes, sir, that guy sitting beside me says, Afraid so. I was like, oh Lord. He's like, and then he looks at another guy at the table. He said, did that really happen? Did he really slap himself? And the other guy who was a friend, I think it was Stan. It might have been Stan. He says, yeah, sir, he did. So he looks at me, looks down at the ground, and I'm sure in his head thinking, I hate my job. I hate my job. He looks back up. He just says, whatever. And then he walks off. Again, after he's gone, the table busts out laughing, falling on the ground. That is one of my most embarrassing moments in high school. And now that I've thought about it, I've got one I can talk about with Stan, and I've got one I can talk about with Bob. So stay tuned. All 89 of you, please stay tuned, and you'll get those stories coming up soon.